us to what I would love for us to do is to actually begin with a gentle breathing exercise just to bring us all into the same space. So, what I want to do is invite all of you to you're already sitting in a comfortable seated position, just making sure all four corners of your feet are pressed up against the floor beneath you, your spine is upright, and whenever you can either rest your hands along your thighs, or you can take your fingertips and just place them on your hand, each fingertips on your hands, and then just place them in between your thighs. And when you are ready, I invite you to close your eyes and to just begin to focus on your breath. And as you breathe in, just noticing on the inhale, the rise of your belly, and noticing on the exhale, just how your chest may sink deeper into the back of your chair. And just continuing to breathe and just following your breath. Being able to just observe if there's any thoughts or anything that is coming to you in this moment with no judgment, just allowing whatever that may be as you bring your awareness just gently back to your breath. Maybe even noticing on the inhale that the temperature is slightly cool as it goes in from outside of your nose and goes into your nostrils and inside of your body. And noticing on the exhale just how the temperature actually warms up. You may notice a slightly increase in heat coming from your lungs, coming from your organs as you exhale that breath outside of your body. And all we're doing at this time is just breathing, allowing our eyes to be closed, our senses to be still. And from this breath, we're just allowing it to be the anchor for us in this moment. And with your eyes still closed, and as you continue to breathe, we're going to do a slight body scan. And all this is whenever I point out a particular area of the body, just bringing your awareness to this particular area. And we'll do a just gentle, brief scan to just tune in and check in with ourselves. So, starting with the forehead, relaxing your forehead, moving to your eyes, relaxing your eyes, moving to your cheeks, relaxing your cheeks, moving all the way down to your chin, to your jaw. If your jaw is clenched at this time, just unclenching your jaw and allowing your tongue to just roam free within your mouth. And we're just releasing tension. Sometimes we can hold on to so much without even knowing it. And this is just a beautiful time to release anything just through the intention of just bringing the breath at this moment. From here, we're going to move to the neck, relaxing the neck, moving to the shoulders, relaxing the shoulders, moving to the upper arms where your biceps, your triceps, just above your elbow, just relaxing this area, to your forearms, to your hands, and all the way out of your fingertips. From here, we're going to just go to the chest, moving down to the navel where your belly button is, moving down to your thighs, just noticing how supported you feel while you sit in your chair with your posture upright and your breath more rhythmic with your eyes closed. Moving to your knees, down to your calves, down to your ankles, and all the way to the top portion of your feet. From here to the very soles of your feet, and just noticing how it is that you feel supported in this moment of spine. Noticing your underneath your feet, the texture, if it's carpet, if it's hardwood, if you have shoes on, just noticing how the bottom of your feet feel pressed up against the ground, pressed up against the surface, whatever that is that's underneath you. From the soles of the feet, we're going to go back to the back of the ankles, moving up to the calves, to the bottom, the back side of the thighs pressed up against your chair, and to the very base of the spine. So again, all we're doing is just with our eyes closed, bringing this attention and this awareness to these different parts of our body as we continue to breathe. And sometimes in the base of our spine, around our hips, we can hold on to a lot in these areas. And all we're doing at this time is just breathing into this area of our body, going to the base of our spine, moving up to the middle of our spine, all the way as you trace that spine until you get to the back of your neck. From the back of the neck, I want you to bring your awareness to the center of your chest where your heart is located, slightly towards the left. And at this time, just sending some gratitude, some appreciation, some love just to yourself at this time for showing up, for being here today. Also, sending gratitude to your heart just for it always pumping. You don't need to think about it, it's always pumping blood throughout your whole body, throughout all of your organs. Sending love and gratitude to the lungs, to the organs, just all these places that sometimes we may not necessarily think about each and every day. And at this time, all we're doing is just sending self love, sending gratitude and appreciation to these areas within our body. And from here, with your eyes still closed, just bringing your awareness to just above your nose, in between your eyebrows. And I invite you at this time to set an intention, whatever that is, whatever that may be for you, on what it is that you would love to receive in our time together. What is it that could be most useful for you? What is an outcome? And I invite you to just set that forth at this time over the next couple of breaths. And from here, we're actually going to close with 3 cleansing breaths together. So I'm going to describe these first, and then I'm going to invite you to do these with me. So what's going to happen on my cue is we're going to start on an exhale together. We're going to push the air out of our mouth from our lungs, and then we're going to take a deep inhale through the nose, and then we're actually going to sigh it out together. So again, on my cue, exhale through the mouth, deep inhale through the nose, and then we'll sigh it out. So at this time, go ahead and exhale out through the mouth. Deep inhale through the nose. Sigh it out. We're going to do 2 more. Inhale. Sigh it out. Last one. Deep inhale and sigh it out. Just wiggling your toes a little bit, maybe bringing each individual finger against your thumb in your hands, moving your shoulders. All we're doing is just bringing some blood flow back to our body. Be moving your neck gently from left to right, up and down. And whenever you are ready, you may open your eyes. All right. So I like to do that. Just a brief breathing exercise. That was no more than about 10 minutes just to just create a sense of balance and a sense of ease and a sense of just being on the same page. Um, and I'll discuss more around that as we go through the session later on this morning. So here's the roadmap for today's session. You will leave with an awareness of how to mindfully be with all of your emotions, because emotions are very much a important key to how it is that we communicate, how it is that we are able to be with certain aspects that may come up within our lives. The second thing you'll leave away with is a 7-step process on how to have difficult conversations with more peace and ease. We all know that we have, sometimes whether we're holding on to something or we need to communicate, um, there can be a lot of depending on what our model was as far as our way of communicating. Sometimes it can be difficult to create these type of conversations, and I'm going to walk you through a 7-step process on how to really create more ease and peace around having communications with our beloveds, or even in a professional or personal capacity. And lastly, a daily practice that quiets the mind, it reduces stress, and it enhances overall well-being. So that's what you will leave with today as far as the roadmap for today's session. So, why? I am a firm believer in the power of story. I believe story connects us, and I could sit up here and I could just go over all these tools and these tips and strategies, and maybe that could be useful, but I believe story is what connects us, and that maybe will give a deeper frame as to not only why I've chosen to speak on this particular topic around communication and harmony within relationships, but just what that means to me, and maybe you might be able to understand a little bit on a deeper level for myself as well. So I'd like to share a little bit about my story. I grew up in Dallas, Texas. Um, I loved basketball growing up being from a little kid. It was my first love in terms of sports. I grew up a big Dallas Mavericks fan. For some of you, you probably remember, Jason Kidd, Jamal Mashburn, Jimmy Jackson. Back in the day, this was the Mav squad that maybe didn't win a lot of games, but they were very entertaining to watch. And as a kid, I grew up loving sports and loving basketball and just being in Dallas and sometimes watching all the Mavericks games, whether it be with my pops or my mother at times. I ended up going from, I ended up having this love for basketball. That ended up graduating into playing basketball in high school, played, varsity, first team all district, ended up receiving a Division II scholarship to play in college. I played 1 year of college basketball at a small junior college actually in Dallas. Brookhaven is the name of it. Some of you may be familiar with it. And then I actually transferred and went to school at Texas Tech University. I majored in sport management and exercise science. And ultimately, I was out of school in 3 years and went on from there to begin my professional working career. So, my first introduction into the professional work life was as an intern working for the Dallas Cowboys. I was working as a sales intern. We were on this was back in 2008, and it was on AT&T Stadium. You had this multi-billion-dollar stadium that was being built, and I was an intern that was fortunate enough to be hired only myself and 17 other individuals out of thousands of applications. That was where my first start came in terms of the professional sports arena. So I'm working with the Cowboys. I'm an intern. I'm having this success and this desire to be in the industry just from my own experience of not necessarily being good enough to play professionally or really having the desire to play physically. But I had this vision of, you know what, if I play, if I'm not good enough to necessarily play, but I can be in the industry, build a successful career within that, great, I'll do that. So as an intern, I actually went. I worked in professional baseball. I moved over 1,000 miles away from home, from Dallas, and moved to Arizona. Didn't know anyone out there. Out of 18 sales reps, I was number one on the board in terms of revenue and sales, and got promoted to a senior level position within 6 months. And after being with Arizona for about 3 years, the Cowboys actually reached out to me and said, "We have a position. We remember you from when you were an intern. We would love for you to, if you're interested, to come back." So I went to the Cowboys, and I was one at the time of my hire. I was the only minority within a senior level sales position within the entire organization. So I felt this sense of like, yeah, okay, I'm back. I'm in Dallas. I'm working for the number one valued sports franchise in the world, and I'm having success. I'm making great money. I have my family close to me. I have friends. I have all these relationships that I'm building. And after about 4 years there, I actually chose intentionally to resign and go in a different direction because I felt my heart's calling was leading me into coaching. And we'll get a little bit more into that in a bit. But before I went into actual coaching and supporting other people, I actually was fortunate enough to take some time off. I went and I traveled through Europe. Went and traveled through 10 different countries. The top left here on your screen, this is Venice, Italy. On the top right, that's in London. I had never really been outside of the US before, and I had this opportunity, and I was able to go out and explore different cultures and see different places in the world that I had never had an awareness of from actually being in. I came back into the country. I spent some time in South America and Ecuador, where these two bottom photos are. I went through a meditation and yoga teacher training. This photo on the left is at the actual like studio that I was at in the mountains. And this photo on the right is just playing around with some of the other students who were there at that particular time. But I spent time, almost 2 months in Ecuador, shortly after I had resigned and kind of went into this new direction. So I came back into the States, and I had this desire to really support other people when it came to stress and health. There's certain areas that I myself was just like, I knew that I had a desire, and I knew I had an experience of myself. So I started working with different executives in the NFL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball. And I was helping them around stress, how to better take care of their minds and their bodies. And it was really great because I went from this industry that I had worked almost nearly a decade to really build and to really be involved in, to really going to still being involved within the industry, but coming at it from a different angle of really being able to support others, whether it be in a one-on-one or a group capacity. I then started to work with men in a group capacity, as well as whether it be in person as well as online. And a lot of this was around being able to communicate, being able to express different emotions, being able to feel certain aspects all the way through, and ultimately build more clarity, get crystal clear on one's vision and purpose, and then be able to channel that and be able to use that and be able to live from a place of purpose and a mission. And this photo on the left, this is one of the groups that I've led, and the photo on the right was actually in Ecuador with some other men here at the bottom. This is one of my clients. His name is Yemi. And this gentleman, when we've been working with each other for almost a year and a half, he was, when we first started working with each other, he was kind of he had just had this big transition in his own life. And fast forward, he's been promoted at his job. He just bought his first dream house. in a very different place than what he was when we first started. But this was a big part. This was a big part of my day-to-day experience in terms of what I love doing and what I love being with. And lastly, I know you saw the photo earlier of whenever I was in Ecuador. Um, when I was out there, I had this vision. I was out there. It was the first time in my life. I've been working since I was 14 years old. And at that particular time, even when I was in college and playing basketball and going to universities, I had one or two jobs. And whenever I resigned and I left the industry that I was in before, that I had built up the relationships and the career, and I went to Ecuador and I spent time in the mountains and I spent time just eating tropical fruits and being connected to nature. There was this awareness, there was this vision, this insight that, you know what, like I not only love the culture and I love being out here, but I really have a desire to, at some point, when the time is right, to be able to live in a place like that. In this photo here, right now, presently, I live in Costa Rica, Atenas, Costa Rica, in the mountains of Costa Rica. This photo here in the left, this is essentially, if I were to turn my laptop around, this is what you would see on the other side of you. And on the right, this is a spring, a hot spring that is about 2 hours from where I reside, where I'm in this thermal hot steam spa, taking care of the self, taking care of the body, and being able to, be in a culture and in a area that, I can say I feel very much like I'm doing work that is supportive of of others in terms of being able to help others along their paths. But there's another side of this story too. So I've mentioned all these different things, the college and the Cowboys and the Diamondbacks and the men's groups and the one-on-one coaching and the traveling, to 20 different countries throughout the world, and living abroad in Costa Rica. But I haven't mentioned some of these other pieces that have really been, crucial experiences within my life that I've experienced as well. One of those would be around drinking, from high school that graduated into college, that graduated into my professional life. I didn't have this awareness of it, but I had this propensity to drink, and to drink often. And as I was drinking, this was showing up in other areas of my life, as far as me not being able to communicate or being able to express, me having anger issues, me being lashing out in these particular kind of aspects. I also, my father, he passed when I was 12 years old. I had a near death experience when I was 11. I used to have these debilitating migraine headaches that would literally bring me to my knees. And before I knew what anything like meditation or breathing exercises were, I had these going on for years, and my health would continue to deteriorate and continue to have these aspects that I felt like I was in survival mode all the time. This picture in the middle, I cropped it, and you don't see the other person on the side of me. Some of you will recognize the name at least. In this picture in the middle, this is at a time when I was 60 pounds heavier than what my present weight is today. And I had won this sales competition at my job at that particular period of time. And Larry Fitzgerald was right next to me, but I was highly stressed. I felt anxious. I felt like there was a sense of no energy, brain fog, fatigue, all these different things that were going on and I was experiencing. I was also, arrested. I spent a night in jail for a public intoxication. I was also kicked off of my high school basketball team for a year for theft. I was also addicted to porn for almost 20 years. Sugar addiction, porn addiction, these particular aspects that have been a part of my life and their experiences that may have not came up in the first part, but these are real experiences for me. And here on the right, this is my beautiful mother. This is one of the last photos that we took together just over 4 years ago, almost to the day she passed away. And it's not a day goes by that I don't think about her. But this was one of the last photos that we took together. So why is it that I mention all of this? Like, what's at the foundation of this? Well, is at the foundation of this is our emotions. And when we have these particular emotions and these experiences, and for myself, what I was holding on to a lot of different things. I was holding on to not being able to process certain aspects, whether it be from my pops, whether it be from bullying or just different aspects that I had experienced in life. The emotional piece is so intricate and so important, and it was a blind spot for me. I had no awareness of this. So even as I'm making great money and I'm working for America's team, and I'm having on the surface what may come across as you're living the life. You've made it, quote unquote, as far as a mountaintop. On my end, I was struggling, and I had no foundation. I had no way of being able to even feel comfortable communicating that, because I was so used to being the person that was, you know, people would come to, or I'm the one who, it's my responsibility to kind of hold that frame or to hold that container for everybody else. But the emotional piece underneath everything was really something that I had no awareness of. But this is something that many men struggle with, as far as being able to communicate and be with their emotions. So then a light bulb went off for me. You know, a light bulb went off for me, after much work, doing group therapy, hiring personal coaches, working with different aspects, the books, the self care, all these different pieces. There was this light bulb that went off for me. And this light bulb actually went off for me while I was in the middle of my first men's group. This was almost about over 3 years ago. Um, I went into a men's group because I had this aspect where, with my beloved, anytime a certain emotion would come up, if I was sad or something was said, I would go and almost feel paralyzed, and I wouldn't even be able to speak. It was just this sense of, I don't know what's beneath this, but something's not right. So then I had this insight, this very much, um, awakening moment around that. And what I learned is, where does this come from? You know, who is your masculine model? Whether that's your father, whether that's a uncle, whether that's a mentor, someone who's close. Because as kids, we adopt and we attract based off of what it is that our models are. you know there's that saying, do as I say, not as I do, but that's not how it works. It's, do we follow, whatever that model is in front of us. So these are just different questions to be with. Did you have a masculine model? And if you did have one, what was their relationship to emotions? Did they ever express fears, or openly show sadness? Or was it just, anger or dismissiveness? And I'll speak about my father just very briefly, rest in spirit. I only saw him cry once when I was 6 years old. It was at the funeral of his mother and my grandmother. And I remember he was wearing shades. And I looked up at him and I saw a tear come down from his eye. And as that tear came down, when he saw me and we made he saw that I saw that he was crying, he immediately moved the tear from his eye and he turned, just so my son wouldn't see him. And I didn't have an awareness of that back then, but that's a picture that really played a that I vividly remember, because it was like, even at a funeral, even at a place where you have this, you have these emotions, holding on to and suppressing these different aspects, and not necessarily feeling comfortable expressing or comfortable sharing or being with those emotions. So I want to ask you, just to reflect inwardly, what's your relationship to being with your emotions and expressing them? Happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, surprise. What if it's what's your relationship to these particular aspects of how you convey or how you express these? You know, is it is happiness and anger, is there judgment towards oneself when you feel angry? Is there a sense of I feel okay when I'm happy, but when I'm angry, this is not okay, you know. And the reason I bring that up is because when we judge different emotions, as being a part of this human experience, when we judge certain things and we don't necessarily have an awareness of not only how to be with what those emotions are, but we sense that the only thing we want to focus on is happiness, and anything outside of that is not okay. Then what happens is we create these dynamics where we store our emotions within our bodies. And on this next slide, this is an emotional pain body chart. And within the emotional pain body chart, this shows like just different areas that we store emotions. Remember at the beginning when I was leading you through the brief breathing exercise, and I was talking about at the hips, the hips and at the base of the spine, we can hold on to a lot, within our bodies and not even have this awareness that these aspects exist. And the importance of this is on an intellectual or on a communicative level. Sometimes if we're talking, you know, there's a layer that's deeper than that talking, and it's actually in the body's physiology. And when we are not able to tap into that piece in itself, then it can create this almost like this barrier, this wall at times for us to be able to communicate, for us to be able to be with emotions, for us to kind of build up that habitual pattern and that physiology to share. And I'll share this. I wasn't even planning on sharing this. I remember one of the first times, like I did yoga. So I'm yoga certified. I've taught it. I teach meditations, these particular aspects. And but years before that, I was a heavy weight lifter. 6 days at the week, I'm lifting a lot of weights and going to the gym. And I tried yoga for the first time, and I remember it was one of the most challenging exercises, for me. I had kind of threw it under the bus and said, people don't, people who look like me don't do that. They don't do yoga. And when I did it, I was like, wow, this was really challenging. I was super stiff and tight in my body. And I remember the third time I went, because I signed up for a pass, and it was like around New Year. So there was a special and you can go X amount of days, for a certain amount. So like maybe like a 30-day pass. And I tried to go as frequently as I could. And the third time that I went, I ended up, and as I was walking to my car and I got into the car, I just started bursting out in tears. And I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel any, I wasn't aware of my emotions, but for some reason there was tears pouring down my face. And then later on down the line, I learned, I didn't have the awareness of it, but I learned about how we store emotions, and when we're doing certain movements within the body, how we can open up different areas. Us, even just in this moment, us as humans, we weren't really designed to sit down for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. We're designed to move and designed to walk and designed to kind of have our bodies be fluid. And the more and more stiff we are, the more and more that we are, kind of behind a desk and not getting as much movement in, the more that we can become tight. And the tighter we are, the more easy it is for us to hold on to some of these different aspects that I'm mentioning. Um, so yeah, just a question for yourself. Where do you store emotions? Where in your body do you notice that you may feel sad, you may feel fear, you may feel anger? I know for myself, I feel fear in my stomach. And I felt this morning. I woke up and I was thinking about some of the things that I needed to do in order to finish being prepared to speak with you all, as well as certain aspects that I had yesterday that I wasn't necessarily able to fully get to. And I was like, man, I'm feeling like a little bit of fear right now. I'm feeling a little bit of in my stomach. I feel like I have stuff on my plate, and I'm feeling this in my stomach. And you know what? It's okay. I'm gonna focus on my breath. I'm gonna get in the shower. I'm gonna come and be with you guys, and I'm going to love it, and I'm going to appreciate the fear or whatever it is that I'm feeling, and I'm going to allow that to just be there while at the same time coming and kind of leaning towards the area that, is taking a step forward, for lack of better terms. So being able to recognize, this piece in itself, where is it that we store it? Shoulders. There was an experience when I was in Ecuador that I mentioned earlier. I went there for, a teacher training for meditation and yoga. And I had this experience while I was out there, and I was connected to nature. I had never been so deeply immersed in nature in my entire life that tears and all these emotions came up just from being in the environment, because I'm not on social media, I'm not on technology, I'm not on my laptop, I'm not running, I'm not kind of in my work environment. And when we settle down and our nervous systems can become very settled, when we're not constantly taking in all this stimulation, it allows more space and more room for what's real and what's natural to appear. And while I was out there, I was just, I had an experience where I could feel the amount of tension I was holding on my shoulders, and I could feel the release of that tension. And the release came from the expression of tears. And I hadn't cried in years. I didn't have this awareness of there even being a need. I was holding on to so much. So I just mentioned that just as a reference piece. So let's get into the whole relationship piece. Let's get into the what this talk is essentially set up on is how to create a mindful clearing conversation. So mindful clearing conversation is it's when two people can create conscious dialogue that is open, curious, and committed to learning. And the latter of that would be, if you feel closed off, you feel defensive, you're committed to being right. That would be the opposite. It's hard when someone's committed to being right and someone is being very defensive. It's hard for there to be some type of harmony, there to be any kind of sense of agreement within that. But when we're committed to being open and curious and learning, then that in itself, it releases this tension. It allows there to be more space and opportunity for there not only to be a sense of expansion of the mind, but there to be a sense of collectedness, a sense of understanding, a sense of depth, a sense of presence, to be able to hear what the other person is saying and to be able to experience those emotions in the moment. 7 steps to a mindful clearing conversation. I'm going to briefly go over this, um, and the power of it. And as I go over it on the next slide, you'll see I've created a video as well, so that for those of you who are interested, I'm going to share my email, and I can send you a link to watch that video. So I'm kind of jumping a little bit ahead, but take a screenshot of this if you like. Obviously if you're on your laptops. But these 7 steps, I kid you not, this has been some of the most powerful, one of the most powerful tools in my own toolkit, to the point where you may not believe this based off of maybe how I'm speaking, or maybe some of you might, but I have not at times been a very good communicator in terms of speaking up and in terms of even communicating, when certain aspects, may need to be expressed. And I gathered this from my own experience of being in a men's group myself, surrounded by other men who were committed to leaning in and to being open and to being vulnerable and sharing in front of each other and creating this type of dialogue and framework, whether it be in their intimate relationships, whether it be on the personal level with close friends, or whether it be in a professional capacity. So step one is to be intentional and clear on setting up a date and time to speak in an undistracted place. And what this means is, if there is, let's say you and your beloved, there's something occurs, and you feel like a conversation could be useful, because if the conversation maybe isn't had, maybe there's just this holding on, there's this suppression. And then what can happen is there can be these layers, like maybe something from 2 weeks ago that could have been resolved or could have been communicated about, it goes under the surface, it goes inside of your body, and then you forget about it because time goes on and then something else happens, and then maybe that you stuff that and you move that in, and then something else happens, and then even if this first layer that's on top, even if you move that out of the way, sometimes there can still be these other layers that are underneath that haven't been expressed or haven't been felt, so that they're still there, and then there's not even this awareness that they even exist because of when they've happened, when they've occurred weeks, months, years ago. So step one is being intentional and clear on setting up a date and time to speak in an undistracted place. Hey, so and so, um, would you be free, you know, tomorrow at at X time or Y time? There's something I would like to express and share with you. Will you be? Could you be in an undistracted place at this time or this time? So being able to set that up in a container that it's not just like a text message. It's like, no, we're connected at a time where both of us know that it's 30 minutes, whatever you choose, what works best, and you're in an undistracted place. Step two, asking permission to share. So now you and the other person are here, you're face to face, or you're over the phone with one another, and you ask them permission to share. Hey, so and so, I just want to, I'm glad that we're connecting. I There's something I would like to express to you or to share with you. Are you open to hear it at this time? So step two, it creates a sense of presence, a sense of connection, because you're asking the other person if they're open to if they're open to hear what it is that you're about to share. Step two. Step three, explain the situation of the story or how you felt or how you feel around it. So 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, we were out with some friends, and um, when we were sitting at dinner, you made a comment around X, Y, and Z that I told you about this in private, and I felt hurt. I felt hurt because I felt like this was something you know, um, that I communicated to you that was important to me, and I trusted, our dialogue or our communication. And when I heard that 2 weeks ago, I felt sad. I felt hurt, you know. And after I felt that sadness, after a couple days went by, I actually became angry. And that anger, it's something that you know what I'm doing in terms of creating this conversation with you is I just really want to express how I felt, how I sense it, and I would love to hear how you feel or what your perception of it was. So it's really important to, when we're creating this, to take full responsibility for our own emotions. Because if we pull this, you made me feel like blank when you did X, Y, and Z, instantly a person's defenses will go up because it comes across as if you're blaming the other person. And people don't like to feel like they're being blamed for different things. You know, that instantly, maybe there's openness here, but that instantly will close that off if there's a certain sense of blame that comes up. So just keeping that in mind. So then step four, share why it's important for you to share what you just did. I'm sharing this because I have love for you. I'm sharing this because I care about you. I'm sharing this because this has been an area within my life that I haven't done the best job of. It's an area that feels uncomfortable for me, communicating without shouting or communicating from a place of me speaking up for myself, speaking my truth. And I care about you, or I love you, I look up to you, whatever that may be. And this is the reason why it's important for me to share it. So then step five, you're openly asking them how they feel or how they perceive it. And I also want to create this as well from the beginning. Sometimes, these steps are in place, but sometimes things may not go the way that you anticipate them to go whenever you create these type of conversations. And what I mean by that, some people can at times feel blindsided, you know, and when sometimes we feel blindsided, emotions can come up. There can be interruptions. There can be a sense of of people defending themselves. And this is why it's very, very important to be mindful around this and to create a space and to take full responsibility of whatever emotion that you felt or that you're feeling presently. Because when we do that, it can create a sense of openness and a sense of being able to stay centered if certain things come up, if certain things are said. Practice makes progress, though. So this, I want to say that again. Practice makes progress. Step six is silence. So now you've shared, you've asked them to perceive, to share what they perceive. Um, you have also hopefully um, there hasn't been too many interruptions. Maybe it's, and if there is interruptions and things come up, that's great too. One of my clients, this is someone who didn't have a relationship with his father for 4 years. For 4 years, him and his father didn't have any relationship. He didn't talk to him. We worked around this, and him and his father, it's a completely different dynamic as far as their relationship and how they communicate and how vulnerable and how much they love each other. There was this block because neither person necessarily had that model of how to be vulnerable and how to communicate. And I just bring that up because sometimes we can create this sense that it'll take, or that's an impossibility. Like he did this when I was this age, or he did this, or that happened, and it's whatever. I've seen it time and time again where in one conversation you can be surprised, you know, just how much can shift and how much can change in a relationship, in a friendship, in a in even on a professional, level as well. So silence. Allow that person to speak and share whatever it is that they need to share. Again, emotions. This is stuff comes up during this. I mean, this is work. This is movement. And we all have patterns. And those patterns will show up. And just be okay with that. Just be mindful of that. But allow them to speak and say whatever it is that they need to share. Step seven, express gratitude and appreciation for their openness and listening. You can reflect back what it is that they've said. They can reflect. If it's two people and it's a couple and you both have these steps together, because me and my partner, we go through this, like, and it definitely was not very very open when we first started this years ago. But it's a sense of being able to be centered and being able to allow the other person to express, and then being able to reflect back, and then being able to express gratitude and appreciation for their openness and listening. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you, just for your presence and allowing me to share this. So I'm grateful for, what you said, because I didn't perceive it that way. But you know what? After you shared it and I listened to you, I can see how or why you actually viewed it that way. So thank you for sharing that with me. Again, screenshot, uh, step by step video. You can email me, screenshot, or take down my email address. I will send you this video. It's essentially everything that I'm saying to you, but it's verbal. You can watch that as many times as you can. This, I'm telling you, this is the work. I work with men, and this comes up time and time again. So what I want to say around this is sometimes we can think like, it's my career. I'm feeling stuck within my career, or I'm feeling stuck within my personal health, or these particular aspects. And underneath all of these pieces is the emotional piece. It really is the emotional piece, because we create whatever it is that we either allow, or whatever it is that we have these, sometimes these unconscious agreements. It's like you've been doing X within your relationship, you've been doing X, Y, and Z this exact same way since we first met. And now, I expect you to act this way, or I expect you to be this particular way. And sometimes us as humans, we're malleable. We change. Think about yourself 5 years ago. Think about who that person was 5 or 10 years ago, and think about who you are right now. And as we change, there's a certain need to create new agreements and new structures and new dynamics within relationships. And the only way these can be created is through conversation and communication. Because if we expect someone to be a certain way based off of who they were, you know, at an earlier period of time, and we don't communicate these things, expectations create resentment. Agreements create balance and they create harmony. I'm going to repeat that. Expectations create resentment, but agreements create balance and harmony within relationships. Um, However, there's one vital step that enhances this. And I think, if you were here from the very beginning, um, you will know that you will have experienced it. And this is the step that really creates the foundation and the dynamic to be able to even have these conversations, to be able to communicate from a sense of presence, from a sense of groundedness, from a sense of I'm communicating to you. And even as I'm noticing emotions come up, I'm able to be with them and I'm not going to lash out. I'm not going to scream. I'm going to allow whatever emotions come up to come up. And from that place, what we're doing is we're creating a whole new physiology in the body. It goes to the neurological level in the brain, it goes to the physiological level in the cells of the body. And the more that we are tuning into that, the more that we create that in our reality. And when that one vital step that enhances it is meditation. Meditation is one of the most simple ways to really not only be with yourself and understand your emotions, but it reduces stress and anxiety. It reduces negative emotions. It increases patience and tolerance. It increases self awareness. It increases imagination and creativity, promotes emotional health, improves your sleep. It enhances all of your relationships. And I bring up meditation. This is something that is on the surface, it may come across as very juvenile or very, very simplistic. And at an intellectual level, see this all the time, like intellectually, yeah, I think I could do that, or I should do that, but I've never done it before. I never really tried it. I think it could be good. I'm all about the experience. I'm all about that action. So when it comes to actually, you know, the words matching the actions and being able to experiment and try different things for a period of time so that you can actually have the experience of it. I don't believe in being a armchair. What is it called? Like the armchair philosopher, the armchair person who's speaking about these things but not doing it. So I've created a complimentary guided meditation. It's at this exact same time, not exact same time. It's 11 o'clock. So I think today we started at 11:35 Central. So it'll be 30 minutes before. This is next Saturday. This is completely on me. We're going to spend Saturday for that hour. I'm going to walk you through a longer guided meditation than what we did here at the beginning. And then we'll have some space and some time to relax. And if there's an opportunity or openness to reflect and to bring up anything, you'll have that opportunity in that space. What I need to do is I'm going to share the link in the actual chat. And as I do that, I'm going to stop the screen share. And we don't have too much time, but if there are any insights or any questions, please feel free to, you can raise your hand or you can ask. And then I think if you took down my email as well, let me pull up the chat. So here it is, right here. Oh, looks like Veta already sent it. Appreciate it. Um, okay, so I think we did all right on time. So let me see if there was anything. You know what? I had a I had a quote that I was gonna leave. There we go. Is the screen shared again or no? It's not right now. I don't believe. Let me pull it up and try this one more time. Uh, Hopefully you guys can see that. So yep, that's my email address. That's my website. Underneath that, you have the link. Um, that'll be next Saturday on the meditation. It'd be my honor to just to lead you through this particular practice. Even if you've tried it before, great. Feel free to come. If you never tried it before, great. Feel free to come. Um, you can sign up for the meditation within that link that I shared. And I just want to leave with a Marion Williamson quote. This is just an author who I really vibe. She really speaks around, personal development and self care and our emotions. And um, this is one of my favorite quotes for her, which is when healing physically, we need to be gentle with our bodies. And when healing emotionally, we need to be gentle with ourselves. Um, and without further ado, I believe that's all I got. Uh, are there any questions? I know I think we have like 3 minutes, maybe three, two now. Does anybody have any question, insight, anything that may have came to you just during our our brief but succinct 55 minutes with one another? Looks like somebody, I don't know if Elliot's trying to do, he should be typing something. Uh, yeah. So I would love to see some of you. I know I see a few faces on here and other people who were maybe who don't have the video on. But again, if you're open for the breathing exercise next Saturday, I would love to, bring you through that experience. You can leave your camera off if that feels more comfortable for you. You can put it on if that feels more comfortable for you. But we'll kick off our shoes. We'll relax. It'll be just a very sacred time of just, there's not about doing or any of that. It's just about being and just being with our bodies and tuning into ourselves. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. I appreciate you all being here today. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor just being with you all. And much love to you. Much positive vibes, positive energy. And yeah, if there's nothing else, and I think that we are breezy. Where? But you're able to bring up the freezing. I'm just doing a little bit of scrolling. I saw somebody said the survey does not include Brandon's event. I'm figuring out this app.
Thank you,
Okay.
Brand. This is great, man. This is really great, man. I appreciate it
Thank you, Isaac.
coming in. This has been great. Yeah, the meditation and really being centered was phenomenal. I really love that. A lot of time we don't have an opportunity to be still and really focus on ourselves. We're always pouring out and giving out, and whoever wants something and pulling everything from you at work, kids, whatever the case may be. And so it was really good to just be still for a moment in the midst of chaos, literally, right? So like it's global, right? Like it's chaos. There's a lot of stuff going on, but like, can we still be still amongst everything that's going on and that we do know and not and so I guess my question is like um in everything that we kind of are experiencing today, right? We got uh the political aspect, the so racial, social injustices and racial tensions and the pandemic and things that we know, that trafficking and all this other type of stuff. Like how does one even quiet to mind and not think about those things? Your finances, trying to pay bills and stuff like that, your general stuff that we're all stressed around trying to pay that mortgage. But like, how can you even get to that place? And I think that was kind of a struggle for me. It was like, how do we get to that place to even be still, to fully experience that breath?
Mm. You know, it's
Uh,
interesting. It's sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Isaac.
but
I was going to say it's interesting to hear you say that. And what comes up for me, I remember, and I'll try to be brief because I know I don't want to mess up on the time. But there was a period of time a few years ago where I was really at a very highly stressed place. I would say it was probably the highest stressed period of my entire life. And it was a period of time where I felt like I was working probably close to 65, 70 hours a week. I had these multi-million dollar quotas at my previous position of my employment. I was responsible for supporting my mother during this period of time. I was in a job that I no longer had a desire to necessarily be in. And I was in a relationship that was breaking down and my health was deteriorating. All these things were happening at the same time. And I remember um, believing that I didn't necessarily have time for anything else. I was just like, I'm kind of in this place and I'd feel stuck. I have no idea what to do. I feel like there's a lot of different things that are in my field or in my arena that some of these are a bit out of my control from a place of um, you know I'm not going to make certain decisions that can impact other people to that particular. And what I'll say is um, that was at a particular time when I first started meditating. I said, I'm waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I am, I'm at the time I'm running and then I'm getting home at 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. And you know what? I'm going to give this a try because I don't see any other way for me to create some sense of balance with my life. Like, I'm not going to add anything else on top of what it is that I have going on. And the reason I bring this up is because what ended up happening for me, and I see this time and time again, with people, is when you spend time intentionally quieting down the mind each day, this can be 10, 20 minutes. Over time, it creates more space and time for you. You won't necessarily think that or maybe believe that, but I went from someone who at the time was saying, I don't have enough time for this, man. I got to be to work at 7. I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm home. I'm doing work activities when I get home, and then I'm going to sleep. But when I added that particular, at the time it started off for me, it was a 10-minute meditation. I started that and I said, I'm going to just try this out. I'm going to do this, you know, I'm going to commit to doing this for 3 weeks straight. And after a couple of weeks, I started to notice some of these aspects maybe would that are still present. They're not throwing me over the cliff as they were before. Meaning I'm able to see them and be with them and not have this nervous system. A lot of I know I mentioned that word before, but the nervous system is how our nervous systems react to stress and how our nervous systems react to certain behaviors, certain patterns. We could have these things from when we were children and just naturally, we can become stressed. And when certain aspects may appear or certain aspects may show up, and it can be very unconscious. It's the body that is actually responding to stimulation or responding to a behavior that it's used to responding to. And when we do slow down, and that's a big part of what I intend and what I bring to the world, and as far as my own personal work, is really around slowing down. Because when we slow down, we can slow down and we can actually operate from a more efficient place. We can actually operate from a more healthy place. We can actually be with certain aspects on a much more intentional level without maybe feeling the same wrath or the same degree of our emotions or the stress or the things that you did mention, Isaac, um, and that and that's why I offer the meditation. I know it's, you know, I work with different people from all around the world, and I tell people, I've said, you could save so much money if you start meditating. If you start doing this, you could put a lot of money in your pockets because you may be able to see different things or be able to experience more peace of mind and ease of flow, because that peace in itself can be at the foundation that really creates the clarity and really creates the possibilities of creating new decisions and things like that. And I know some people, I'll say this and then I'll stop. Some people, may not necessarily feel connected, maybe thinking it on a religious level or anything like that. Myself, I look at it as a practice that's very inclusive, as a practice that can, all we're doing is focusing on our breath. We're quieting our nervous system down. We're quieting our minds, and we're creating these behaviors and these patterns that can, over time, I would say it saved my life, because I was somebody who has dealt with depression and somebody who had extremely high levels of anxiety throughout most of my childhood and growing up. And it wasn't until I really started to get into a certain practice and get into a commitment priority for my own personal health that certain aspects started to show up that really, even created this dynamic